Has Mike Zimmer, quote unquote, lost it?
I don't know about that.
Or are we looking at aging personnel? You got some injuries here, Harrison Smith. I mean, Harrison Smith's not the same player he was 2 years ago, whether you want to blame it on the hamstring or
He's playing hurt
banged up.
tonight, yeah.
Xavier Rhodes, not the same player he was 2 or 3 years ago.
I guess
Everson Griffin's better this year than he was last year, but
I guess my question on Rhodes is, why does he still play so much? When it's apparent to you, me, and my dog that he can't play.
right. But like,
So I think to say that Mike has lost it is a blanket statement that's probably way too wide.
yes.
But I do think it's very fair to wonder how on earth this guy who clearly is struggling to keep up with not even great players, but just, let's say, good players, continues to play. I think that's a fair question.
Right. But it's not. But this is the problem. Okay. And by the way, you're listening to AM 1500 KSTP, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and it's Score North, the all new Score North and the Score North app. But like, to that point, okay. Yes, Xavier Rhodes should probably be benched. He just should be. He's not good at football anymore. He commits penalties all the time. He's slamming his helmet, and it's just, I get that he's mad and he's having trouble coping with reality here too.
Mm-hmm.
But 2-3 years ago, when Xavier Rhodes was one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, Mike Zimmer was a lot smarter because he had Xavier Rhodes as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. That's how it works. If Eric Spoelstra was one of the best coaches in the NBA when he had LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh all in their primes, right?
Sure.
So even if you bench Xavier Rhodes right now, you're not replacing Xavier Rhodes with the version that existed 3 years ago. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, anyone who said, well, Mike Zimmer's lost it. The guy's a moron now.
No,
he didn't fix anything during the bye week. What if, based on their personnel, there's just not any more strings you can pull to put the defense back in the top 3 or top 5 position?
Well, you probably
now
can't.
We're talking about a personnel issue.
But give yourself a chance.
People get old.
And Rhodes doesn't. And he continues to play too much. And that's what I don't get. But you can't say he's lost it. I don't think he's dumb now. But I firmly believe that he is loyal to a fault, for sure. Mike Hughes is far from perfect, all right? But I would rather take my chance. And Dallas targeted Mike Hughes 17 times, Phil. So we're talking about a guy who's definitely deemed to be susceptible by opponents. But I would rather take my chances with Holton Hill and Mike Hughes. And you can play Rhodes, but he's being used and played consistently like it's 2016. And that confuses me. But just to say he's lost it, he stinks, no, that's not true. But there's definite decisions that I don't get. And I do think it goes to the fact that he is, to his players, especially the ones that Zimmer loves the most, is probably too fiercely loyal to them.
Let's go to our guy, Chancey in Fargo. Chancey, you are on Vikings Vent Line. Fire away.
Hey, yes, thank you, guys. Gosh, good callers tonight. Lots of good points. You guys have the most educated fan base in radio, and I would nail that for sure. So
thanks, Chancey.
But, yeah. Hey, I want to kind of disagree with you, Phil, with what you just said. So the caller before kind of stole my thunder about Mike Zimmer, right? And here's my thinking. If the reason that he's no longer, like you said, elite is because he just doesn't have the talent, then was he ever elite to start with? Maybe he just had the talent. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You can't say, well, now he doesn't have the players, so he hasn't done anything different. He hasn't lost anything. Well, maybe he just had the players before. And, it frustrates me. Like, if you watch that game, even the few times, and that was few, that they were able to make Seattle punt, they stopped them a half a yard short. I mean, we weren't talking 3rd and 13s, 4th and 13s. We were talking, oh, man, we just scratched a guy down by an eyelash, a yard short. It's the defense has gotten weak. They still have some elite players. Nobody can argue it. I mean, Danielle Hunter, Harrison Smith, Kendricks, everybody knows they're good. Look around the NFL. Who is stacked at 11 positions across the defense? But they don't have the same D. And like the other caller said, they were coming off a bye week with 2 weeks to prepare. And I know the offense gave up some turnovers, but that's 34 points. I mean, I wanted to talk about the schedule, too. You guys were talking about it. This is how I felt about the Vikings forever. They're almost like a college team at this point in the fact that I think they can beat anybody, anywhere at U.S. Bank Stadium. I guess not anywhere, at U.S. Bank Stadium. They can lose to anybody on the road, which makes their seasons so stressful because you're starting every year going, we need 14-2, and we can't have these slip-ups because we aren't going anywhere to win on the road.
Yeah.
And it just makes it such a pressure grinder of a season. if they ever get home field advantage again, I feel they're going to Super Bowl. But it just doesn't happen because you can't rely on them to get through a season without a slip up. And, I don't know how you get there. So
Also
anyway,
worth,
have a great night.
Chancey, thank you for the phone call. You always bring good points. Here's the crazy thing about the NFC, though. I think it's pretty likely, like 50-50. I don't know what the odds would be. It's pretty likely they go 12-4. I think they win their next 4 games. I think they beat Detroit. I think they win at the Chargers. That game got flexed out of primetime. I think they beat the Packers, and I think they beat the Bears at home to finish their season 12-4.
Should.
And even with that, they might be the 6th seed, right? Like the 5th seed.
The playoff system is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
So they're going to go. It's possible they run the table at home and go 4-4 on the road if that happens. And just based on how top heavy the NFC is, they get screwed, and it's sort of bad luck if you go 12-4 and get like the 5th seed.
But again, if you had won, to your point about Chicago, if you had won at Chicago and Kansas City, then you're fine. That's why you need to have a few of these wins that we consider, or a few more that we consider to be wow wins.
Yeah.
You don't have the wow wins except for the one, and that's borderline to me.
Here's another take for you on Kirk Cousins. All right, just like forget about the defense for a second, because a big part of the equation of can they win the Super Bowl is Kirk Cousins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his last 3 games, his last 8 games have been mostly incredible, but his last 3 games specifically, he went on the road, Dallas, and played a huge role in winning that game in the second half. He brought the Vikings back from 20 points down against a top 6-7 defense against Denver. And he almost brought the Vikings back down 17 points, had a chance to, down 17 points against Seattle tonight on the road. I feel really good about Kirk Cousins still. I don't feel like tonight, even though, I could sit here and say, well, he had the ball with 3.5 minutes to go, and that drive was a clunker
right
after the Kyle Rudolph reception. But for the most part, Kirk just kept coming back and throwing punches tonight, and he deserves credit for that. So he's a key component here, and I feel good about him.
But these last 2 games, I don't feel good about this team. You went down 20-0 to a young quarterback who's been benched, who I don't think is good, right? That's a problem. Now Kirk came back, and you came back, and wow, that was fun to watch. And the second half of the Denver game was great. But if you take that first half in US Bank Stadium, Phil, that should never happen to you. You're supposed to be a good team. Denver's not good.
Denver has a good defense.
Right, but they're not a good team. And in Denver, perhaps something goes wrong there. But you were playing here. And then tonight, you're up by 7 at halftime. And again, you can take control. And this has nothing to do with a blame Kirk show. This is not blaming Kirk. This is blaming the team, and in particular, the defense. And it's very concerning is not the right word. It is too bad that it appears what the overall game plan was in March 2018 when Cousins was signed here has gone completely awry now. Because this was supposed to be, wow, we've got this defense, and the offense is good enough to help us. Well, now it's turning to Kirk and the offense and being like, can you help us now? Because the defense has fallen off in some key areas so quickly. And I don't see, and I agree. If you go through the last 4 games now, I think that the Vikings should go 4-0 for the rest of this month. And they're going to make the playoffs. But that being said, in my head now, I can't get around a plan that would say, okay, they're in the playoffs. They can win 2 games, 3 games.
But would you agree that Kirk Cousins, in the second year of his 3-year contract, has been everything that you wanted from him?
Absolutely.
The second year.
Since the Chicago game, since October, 6th, against the Giants in Jersey.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins has given you from that contract everything save for probably the KC game, but that's one bad game.
Mm-hmm.
But save for that game, Kirk Cousins has been outstanding. Kirk Cousins, if you had told me in March of 2018, hey, he's going to get off to a bad start in 2019, and then he's going to rally and play really well, and you had given me not just these stats, but also the feeling of how he played, I'd say NFC North champion with a legitimate Super Bowl chance. Because I would have said the defense is going to be great, right?
Yeah, and they can still win the division. They have to essentially win out to give them, unless you think the Packers are going to lose a bunch of games down the stretch.
Right.
To give the realistic path to winning your division, which is also the realistic path to getting to a Super Bowl, so that you at least have one home game, right? Like you can probably live with one road game in the playoffs and feel okay. If you have to play multiple road games, that's where you and I are in agreement. But the Packers, so you got to win your next 4 to give yourself a great chance.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need the Packers to lose one of their other 3 games, which is home against Washington,
Yeah, good luck with that.
home against Chicago.
Yeah.
They play close games. Chicago's got a decent defense.
Yep.
And then at Detroit the last week of the year.
Which is going to be the platform to get Matt Patricia fired, probably.
So, like, the most likely of those to slip up is Chicago. But if it was at Chicago, I'd feel.
But aren't you
better about it.
frustrated by the fact that you didn't win week 2, that you didn't win Kansas City, that you didn't get tonight, for instance?
Or
Chicago, as you point out, which is ultimately very true.
I'm very at peace with tonight. Like, and this is where I've kind of like now that I watched that game play out, I'm actually more at peace with tonight and more mad about the Chicago game. Because it's like last year, the Buffalo game. It wasn't the Rams, it was the Buffalo game.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing in the Buffalo game? What the hell are you doing in that Chicago game?
But I'm not at peace with the beginning of the third quarter tonight with the fumble and in particular the Rhodes 15-yard personal foul, which was ultimately just stupid. It was just stupid.
Classic though.
And then
can't help himself.
I saw a post-game, Chris Thomason of the Pioneer Press just tweeted that Xavier Rhodes had no comment after the game, simply saying, "I'm out the door." Thanks, dude. Thanks for that stand-up act.
And I think I'm going to assume that meant I'm out the door like
I
tonight.
think he meant of the stadium. Who knows?
Okay.
He should be sort of out the door of the organization, but that's not going to happen right now, I don't think.
It's Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad. Declan's running the board and taking your phone calls on the other side of the glass. These are the TCL studios, and this is Vikings Vent Line on Score North. We've had full phone lines the whole show so far. So as soon as someone makes their point and jumps off, the numbers are 651-646-8255. And you can also find us in video form and spy on us that way on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. All of those are at Score North. We also have an Instagram account at Score North. That's SKOR North.